What do you do if even that suggested bid is not giving any impressions? That's not abnormal, unfortunately. It's not abnormal to not get impressions. And so what I would say is that raise your bids, test raising bids. A couple of reasons why this could happen as well is you might have that particular search being triggered through another one and somewhere else in your ad structure for that product. So that could be another reason why. So if, for example, if that keyword is performing in, say, a phrase match and you go and you launch an exact match, it might take a while for that impressions to start shifting over to the exact match, which is fine and expected. Okay, so you can test that. I would honestly just test like increasing the bids here. Oftentimes, even if you're using the suggested bid, that doesn't necessarily mean that's a high enough or aggressive bid. The suggested bids are a good start, but you always need to optimize from there. There are other ways to do it, right? So anything that is going to increase your conversion rates will increase your ranking. Anything that increases the amount of orders that you're getting through that specific search will increase your ranking. That's why a lot of times sellers will do these things in tandem, like say testing coupons, potentially testing lower price point if you have the margins enough to be able to do that. If there's any sort of listing optimization that you've been putting off for a while. I also just today filmed, so expect it out within the next week or so, filmed a video on how to analyze your conversion rates versus your competition. There's some stuff going over the search query performance reports, how to use those to analyze. So if you're brand registered, I would keep a lookout on the YouTube channel. That's going to be helpful as far as like analyzing how is your conversion rate versus your competition. Best combination of map types for branded, generic, and competitor keyword targets. Yeah, I'm still a huge fan of using all the above. So we use exact match, phrase match, and broad match for pretty much all targets across the board. And now it does somewhat vary depending on the account budget and then what stage we're in, because you notice when I was talking about product launches, I recommended launching specifically an exact match and sticking to that for a while. So I do think that that is applicable. What I would say is that the more aggressive you want to target something, the more specific your match type should be. And that's not because there's anything wrong with phrase match or anything wrong with broad match. Everything has their place. The difference between those is when I am aggressive in exact match, I can be 100% confident that my spend is being allocated to that specific search term. If that decrease in ad impressions means less people are seeing your product through the ads, and then the sort of cumulative, the way that the ads influence organic ranking is if the ads sales are happening through that one specific search. That's why I talk about if you're going aggressive, go an exact match so you can influence the sales velocity through that one specific search. If both the organic and the advertising combined make a greater sales velocity on that one shopper search, then you will climb up in rankings. And that is exactly and precisely the reason why a lot of people will push their advertising, they'll see their organic ranking climb, and then they'll say, oh, this is unprofitable, and they'll cut their ads, and then their ranking decreases. And they're like, what gives? It's because those ad sales through that shopper search were adding to the cumulative or total sales that you were getting through that one shopper search. And without those additional ad sales, you do not have enough sales velocity to be able to push past your competitors. Business reports will tell you the sales that happen the day that that transaction is enacted. So if I go into, if I go to Amazon as a shopper right now, I want to purchase a product, bang, done, add to cart, ship it to me. That transaction is going to show up in that seller's business report as the day that I bought the product. However, if they go into their accounting section of their reports and they look at when they actually, when that accounting records the sale, they're probably not actually going to see that transaction till maybe a day later. And the reason why is because you don't actually get paid as a seller until that product ships. Hello, and welcome back to another segment of Ask Junglr. This is the part of the internet that you can come every single week to get answers to your most pressing Amazon advertising questions. I'm super stoked, which, by the way, if this is your first time in, I want to say a big welcome to those of you joining, and then I'm seeing people who are coming back. So the format of this, basically, we're streaming across all channels, and you can ask your Amazon advertising question in the chat whatever streaming channel you are listening in on, and that will allow me to pull it up on screen. If you were here in the beginning, you saw that really awesome clip together intro from our fantastic editing and creatives team here at Junglr, and that's basically the format. So we do screen shares here as well. I've gotten feedback that everyone really enjoys like screen shares and walkthroughs. So whenever I can do that, I make sure that I get you guys the best questions or the best answers to questions possible. Which, by the way, if you are just like randomly popping across this live stream, I do want to introduce myself. So, hey, my name is Elizabeth Greene. I'm one of the co-founders of an Amazon advertising called Junglr, which is why I feel qualified to do this, because we've been running ads for Amazon sellers for about 8 years now. And we've seen it all, from supplements to baby category to the clothing category, scientific equipment, high-priced items, low conversion rates, giftable products, consumable products, food items, and everything in between. And what we found is that every single category and product has its own nuances, has its own interesting ways in which the products and the consumers behave, which changes your ad strategy. And so because we've seen it all, because we've done it all, I can definitely give answers to like more technical questions. So the more context you give in your question, honestly, the better. And the more I will be able to sort of pull up and give you guys answers to those questions. So I'm super, super stoked today. Looks like we already have some questions in the chat. Questions on budgets. I always get a lot of questions on budgets. So what I'll do is I'm going to pull that one up on screen, and let's talk about budgets. And I'm also going to pull up my handy dandy growth equation. And let's get into this first question. So, yep. If you're listening in, make sure you drop an Amazon ad question in the chat. If I say anything and you have a follow-up to your question, you can do that as well. But the first question is, what is strategy? Limited budget and you want to get more sales. Fantastic question, but also a very, very difficult one, because you are going to be limited. All right, let's do some math. Okay, let's do some fun math. I love forecasting. I love spreadsheets. Let's pull up a spreadsheet and let's talk about what happens when you have a limited budget. So your goal of advertising is two things. If you want to think long-term in ad strategy, you need two views to look at your ads. One, you need to make sure the ads are profitable, which is a cost. Sometimes, depending on the category, that may or may not be possible. But the second thing that you need to do is make sure that your advertising is generating better organic market share for you, which will lead to better total sales. If you only look at advertising profitability, you're going to be missing out on the sales growth factor. If you only look at the sales growth factor, you're probably going to be missing out on profitability. So you need to make sure that those two things are in balance. How does one do that? Okay. So your strategy when you have a limited budget, you need to do limited testing, and you're not going to be able to afford that many clicks. And that second reason you can't afford that many clicks is why you only want to test a limited thing. So say I have a budget of, I'm going to go super lean here, $10, right? Say I had an average CPC of $1 in my account. This means that I can afford, with my budget, let me get this off the screen. Let me see if I can afford with my budget, I can afford 10 clicks. If I can only afford 10 clicks, would I prefer to have those 10 clicks on one or two keywords? Or do I want to get like one click across 10 different keywords and then my budget's out for the day? You would prefer to have maximum like visibility on whatever search it is. Okay. So the problem with like limited clicks is you really are going to have to limit where your ads are going to show up on the platform. All right. So you want to be strategic with where you're spending it. What I would say is if your budget is limited, stick to sponsored product ads. That's where you're going to get the most bang for your buck in terms of market share. And then when it comes to the growth, you want to make sure that you are targeting the ads that you can use to grow market share. All right, WeServing is asking for a link to this tool in the chat. All right, let's pull it up. Let's grab the link. I'm going to drop it in the chat. Yes, you guys can go here and make a copy. All right. So let's pull up this sheet again. So this is what you want to do. Your goal here is your ACoS. So ACoS, think of it like ad efficiency, and your ad sale percentage is your market share. Ad sale percentage is just your ad sales divided by your total sales. So like what percentage of my total sales is driving ads? If you multiply these two things together, you get your total ACoS. So there's very often where even if I had, let's say I had an ACoS of like 20%, if 100% of my ads, my sales are coming from ads, then I'm going to have a 20% total ACoS, which is probably not efficient. So to fix this, I can do two things. I can lower my ACoS, which is already really low at this point of 20%. But that's probably not going to help me get the market share. So really what I would want to do is like maybe I go up to 25% ACoS, but if I have an 80% ad sale percentage, I'm still at 20. So then, all right, can we get to 70? And then you can see I go into 17.5. So that's the two things you want to do in back. Even with a limited budget, if you are not able to get as aggressive as you need to gain market share, you're going to continuously spin your wheels and not have sales grow. So what you want to do, and I'll go over to my ACoS forecasting model, which is in this tool. So your ACoS forecasting model is your average cost per click. These are the things that factor into like your ACoS, by the way. And that's why there's a lot of times where you're like, it doesn't matter what I do, I just can't bring my ACoS down. So let's say we have an average cost per click of $1. We have an average conversion rate of 10% and an average order value of $25. That means our ACoS is going to be 40%. If we needed to say a target ACoS, let's do a little bit less aggressive. Let's say, okay, we need to get from a 40 to a 30. I need to bring down my CPCs, my average CPC, by the way, to 75 cents. So I need to drop it 25 cents, which may or may not be entirely possible given like what my market, because your CPC is determined by two things, your bid and also like your campaign settings, but it's also determined by the market. So there are a lot of times where you lower bids too low and you just stop serving impressions whatsoever. So your goal is to like balance those things. And so there might be a place where you need to maintain a more aggressive CPC to be able to get the momentum you need, but you still need to be profitable. So here, if we had a target ACoS of say 40%, and then I said, okay, I need an ad sale percentage, and I can't really bring this down because I'm stuck with CPC, then say my target ACoS goal was 15%. I say, okay, I need to get down to a 37%, 37.5 to be more specific. And if I had a 37.5% ad sale percentage, then that gets me to my 15% total ACoS goals. And so my goal is like, what can I do within this ad efficiency? So ACoS, which again, we've already talked about how that factors in your CPC, to make sure that I'm driving greater and greater market share for the problem. So that's how it's difficult, and limited budgets make this even harder. So what you need to do is make sure that all of your ad dollars that you're putting into it, because they're very limited, you need to make sure that it's things that don't have a crazy high CPC. So you're probably going after a little bit more long tail. And you don't want to target too many keywords. You want to go super specific sniper. And then You just sort of, you can continue to test as the account grows, but I'll be honest with you, accounts where the budget is super limited tend to be some of the most difficult accounts to manage, just FYI. Andrea was saying, hey, where can I set up my daily budget caps? I'm assuming you're talking about account daily budget caps. Let me see if I can actually pull up an account and screen share. I might have to blur some stuff, so give me 1 second. But if you go into your ad console, and actually I do really want to pull one up because it's been a hot minute since I showed been in one of these accounts to have to, we typically like to not worry too much about daily budget caps, so we will oftentimes elect to not use them, and there also is a setting that you want to be careful of. All right, so if you go into an account, and let me blur this really quick. Okay, cool. Double check everything's good. All right, let's share this tab. All right, so if you go into your campaign manager, you'll see this options right here. If you go to settings, and then you can see use daily budget cap. So if you select this option, then you could select a daily budget cap, and then that's where you would set it. I would recommend saying spend up to 25% more than the average daily budget. So just so you're aware how budget caps work, if you're like, wait, I overspent today. What Amazon does is they take your daily budget and they will average it out over the month. And so say there's one day where you only, for some reason, spent like half your daily budget. And then the next day, what they could do is they could take that half of a daily budget and say, okay, what's 25% more than your daily budget? So say you had $100 cap, you could technically spend up to $25 additional dollars. Only if and only if you have like excess budget from like past days that you haven't spent. If you have spent up to 100% more than the average daily budget, then Amazon can up to double your budgets. Again, providing that your monthly averages, you still have like quote leftover budget from the month to pull from. They'll pull up to, so if say an example of like $100 budget, you would have like a potential of $200 budgets and then at the end of the month, your averages for the entire month, if you averaged it out for every single day, would reach whatever you've set as your average daily budget cap times however many days in the month. So that's how budget caps work, and that's also how to set them. So hopefully that was helpful. All right, cool. Let's pull up another. All right, for those saying, great to have here every Thursday. I appreciate it. If auto targeting suggests a search term for an exact match and you don't negate it in auto, how do you bid on the exact match? Higher or same as the auto? Yes, we will bid higher in exact match than the auto campaigns. And we also have a setting in our bid algorithms, and we also have some manual settings that we could put in. I don't like to get super aggressive on the auto campaigns, typically speaking. Now, pro tip here, this is when you like go outside the box. So that's my general like, I don't like to get super aggressive on autos because of all the potential search terms that can trigger. And also we would prefer to have more of our traffic go through manuals versus auto. That being said, there are some times where you like throw that playbook out the window. And a classic example was there was a new account that they were working on. We had set up all the campaigns, like our manual campaigns, specifically the way that we would have intended to do them. It was a really aggressive category, so we had to put really high bids on those, like even exact and phrase match terms. And we were still just struggling to gain impressions because sometimes like it just takes a while for new accounts to warm up. But in that case, we're struggling to get impressions. So what we did is we kind of flipped the playbook. We said, okay, this is not a great long-term strategy, but for right now, because we're just struggling to gain impressions, we're going to look at auto campaigns, categories, all of those broader targeting types, and we set more aggressive bids on those so we can get the impressions a lot quicker. And then as those things matured, then we were still pushing our manual campaigns in the background, and then we kind of flipped it over. So stop getting as aggressive with the broader strategies. So yes, keep bids higher on your manuals exact specifically, and then there are certain outlying cases. All right. Looks like people are asking for the tool. Well, I'm saying thank you for considering my question. Absolutely, it was a fantastic question. Again, managing with low budgets, it's a little bit difficult to do, but totally doable. You're asking, you have a recording of the sessions. Yes, absolutely. The easiest place to find our recordings is going to be over on YouTube. So if you're watching, which by the way, I have a fantastic new segment that we've been doing with a lot of my friends in the industry, which is amazing. So if you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, highly, highly recommend it. All right, let's pull this one up here. So if you go to youtube.com/@Junglr, that's going to be the best place to find us. Let me see if I could pull that up. All right. Yep. So if you go to youtube.com/@Junglr, you will find our YouTube channel. And if you go over here to the lives, you can see we do one every single Thursday. So you have a ton of content. You can also see I've had guests on. I had some amazing people on. We had Sir over from Incrementum Digital. Words escape me. Yes. And then also we have a ton of videos. So I have some really amazing, which by the way, there's a step-by-step guide. We just launched this on product launches. I did a presentation for Jungle Scout and we just put that up. But we have some amazing guests. We're talking about scaling video ads. So Sean Smith has an amazing lowering bid strategy. He's been launching some really low bids and working up, and that's working. We're talking about top of search placement, duplicating campaign hacks. Sean had a tip on how he's using AI to help him determine ranking keywords. There's a ton of content there. Highly recommend you check that out if you haven't already done that, because we put out videos, I believe, weekly. So lots of stuff going up. All right, Fasala, if SQP tells me I have a 1.5 impression share, how would you know if that's sufficient, or should I increase bids to get more impressions? How do we benchmark impression share for our targets? Fantastic question. So search query performance is great for impression share. If you really want to make changes to, say, ads, I would look at advertising impression share a little bit more than I would overall impression share. And then how you would want to benchmark it is you would want to look at the averages for that keyword. So an example would be, you might not be able to do impression share in search query. Yeah, so I don't think search query is going to give you impression share on the averages. You can look at the click share in not search query performance report, but brand analytics. Will give you, if you type in a keyword, it will give you the top click products. It's somewhat helpful. But honestly, if you want to look at your impression share, I would look at your actually, let me pull up SQP in an account, because I want to look at this honestly, to remember what kind of data points are available in an account. But I would look at the advertising impression share. So there you can look at search terms. There's a search term report for sponsored product ads, search term impression share. That's really helpful. So you'll see your percentage of impressions, which again, full disclosure, these are advertising impressions. And then you can also see your rank. And that's super helpful. An example of this would be, say you had a search term with an impression share of 30%. You're like, oh my gosh, I only have 30% of the impression share. But if you're rank 1, that means that you are getting more impressions than anyone else, a greater impression share than anyone else. So those two things can be helpful, because sometimes percentages, you're never going to get 100% of the impression share. And so you want to look at impression rank to say, how do I stack up? So if I'm 10, there's 9 people in front of me who are getting more impression share in that search than I am. But if I had, say a lower percentage of the impressions, but I had a higher rank, I would know I'm towards the top of people who are getting the most impressions on things. And I'm trying to see, do I not have brands in here? Oh, there we go. Okay. I was going to say, I thought I didn't have brand analytics in this account. That would have been a mess. No, I totally have brand analytics, search analytics, search query performance reports. I was trying to remember if you have, you have an impression share, but I don't remember. Yeah, ASIN share, total count, ASIN count. Yeah, I don't think, doesn't look like you have overall impression share for the rest of the ASINs that are being targeted on there. So I wouldn't even look at search query performance for impression share. I would look at I would definitely look at the search term impression share. Oh, somebody asking for a job. Sorry, we just hired 2 new people. So although we're growing rapidly, but we'll have to go through normal channels for that. Hey Liz, what percentage auto broad phrase exact do you favor based on mods? If so, do you keep them in the same campaigns? Do you easily see which performing? Do you ever reduce your auto to low a bit? Awesome questions, Kim. Quite a few of these. Yeah, so she is also clarifying broad modified. So the favored bases mod and broad. Okay, let's see. Okay, percentage of auto versus fraud and a phrase and exact. I would say, typically speaking, and I'm just going off of the accounts that I were managing and what we're at, it also kind of depends on the performance of the account. So there are accounts where you'll have a greater amount of spend in autos. As long as the market share is strong, the ACoS is strong, the total ACoS is strong, all other metrics are golden, I'm not too worried about the autos. Where it becomes tricky is if you're struggling to gain market share, your total ACoS is struggling because of that, and then also you're only focused on autos, then I'm there's a market share issue, and ACoS is not fantastic for grabbing intentional market share. So that's really when I would start to worry about this kind of breakout. But I would say I've seen 20 to 30% of total spend going to auto campaigns versus manual. That's specifically for sponsored product ads. And I've seen that to be even kind of a healthy ratio. Now, that might be a little bit much than some people. I know some people who go super extreme and are manual campaigns only, autos only good for discovery, don't do anything else. I would say that's not really a factor. I wouldn't worry about it too much. Now, in terms of split between everything, you might get as high. I've seen brands. What I've seen is I've seen brands where they have 30% of their total sponsored product ad budget going to exact match. But what I found in those scenarios is that while they might be doing pretty decent in ranking, so that tends to be a healthy budget for ranking, but oftentimes they were missing ASIN targeting. They were missing a lot of category targeting. They weren't even testing related targeting. They didn't really have that much emphasis on long tail keywords. And those brands were really struggling to generate the amount of sessions that they needed to really hit their sales goals. So honestly, ratios, I think what I would care about more, and let me see if I can pull up, I'll just see if I can do it without sharing any specific data. But I think what I would be worried about more is what is the actual performance of the account. So this is how I would 100% do it. We would look at top line KPIs. So are we hitting ACoS goals? Are we hitting total ACoS goals? What does our total sales look like? Is this on a good trajectory or not? And then I would look into the rest of the catalog or in the ad console to say hey, what are we not doing that we need to do more of? Actually, let me pull this up for you. I'll show you exactly how we do audits, how I would audit this. Bear with me. We'll do a screen share. You get a nice sneak peek behind the scenes of what's going on. All right, so which full disclosure, this is for an audit. So this is a brand that we were looking at. Let me blur this and then we should be good to go. Okay, cool. So this is the kind of thing in which I would look at, Kim. Let me pull down your thing. Okay, so we absolutely look at that. So here you can see, like right now, automatic, they're doing about 62% of spend, which I would consider high, and only 37% of spend. So that's like, okay, we have a lot of room to push into our manual campaigns, absolutely. And then what we would do is we would look at, okay, so out of the manual and auto campaigns, and we do break this out, which allows you to see, okay, so they only have 3% in broad match. Man, actually conversion rate's fantastic here. We need to do more in broad match. Modified broad match, not even using it. Okay, we need to do more there. ASIN targeting, you have high ACoS, but that's because the cost per click is way too high. Click-through rate's actually fantastic on ASIN targeting, and conversion rate is great on ASIN targeting. This is just a disconnect, so there's more things we can do here, but only 5% of spend. You're not even doing expanded. You're not even doing category. ASIN targeting is crushing it, and you're not even taking advantage of all the full targeting when it comes to like ASIN targeting. Also, if you look at substitutes, which pulls ASIN targeting, this is crushing it. Conversion rate's low, click-through rate's low, but CPC is a lot lower. So that's another place. So it's just like, it's just evaluating like what's working, do more of it. So with like ASIN targeting working, I'm going, okay, fantastic. ASIN targeting is working. How do I do more ASIN targeting? Oh, categories. Oh, substitutes and auto. Oh, expanded ASIN targeting. Great. That's how I do more. Oh, sponsor display, ASIN targeting. That's another one. They weren't doing sponsor display. Okay, great. Fantastic. I have a whole bunch of tests I need to run. Something's not doing great. So ACoS is a little bit higher here. That's because of the higher CPCs. Okay, so, but click-through rate's actually really low. Okay, so now I know I need to go in and evaluate where am I overspending on my exact match campaigns? Because again, 20% of your total spend is going to exact match, but like the click-through rate's super low. Conversion rate's not bad. I need to fix this click-through rate. So I need to go in the ads. How do you fix the click-through rate? What am I targeting exact match? What is not working well? How do I do, how do I prune that and make it better? So it's just building out something like this, which again, this is an audit. This is literally what we go through with our brands on audits. There's a ton more that goes into it, but this is one of the things that we look at. And so if you want an audit, by the way, shameless plug, feel free to reach out to us on our website. You can apply, get an audit. You got to talk to me first because we want to go over goals first, but you can talk to me directly and we'll get you an evaluation of your ad campaigns. Goal there is to be like, hey, oh my gosh, you love the audit and you want to work with us. Not sure why that's broken. That's not great. But anyways, that's how I would look at it, Kim. It's more like what's working, what's not working, than like, oh, I have to hit. Because what I've found is that if you go through like sponsored product ads and you're just like, you're optimizing it correctly, and sponsored brand ads and you're optimizing it correctly, and sponsored display ads, you will end up at a place that makes sense for your account. Because what I found is like when you just go, oh, I need to do this thing in this exact ratios, sometimes you can end up making not so great optimizations for the account. That makes sense. People asking about partners. So we don't do partnerships. I don't really offer coaching. I technically have a calendar floating out there somewhere. If somebody wants to pay me $500 for an hour of my time, maybe it's 400. I don't remember. I do that, but I don't really publish that link because, to be honest, my time is super limited these days. But that's why this is for. Kim has a good question. Do you combine modified broad match and broad match in the same campaign so you can see more easily what is performing? No, we typically split that out. We would consider modified broad match as a separate match type. So even though technically they're the same, I wouldn't consider them the same, and I would want to put them in their own campaign. Do you use down only, up and down for exact match types? If yes, what's the goal for that? Do they help in ranking? fantastic question. Let me go into a campaign. Let's talk about what each match type or what each targeting type does and what I would recommend, because there's actually a third one which is optimized for ROAS, but to be honest, I really haven't ever seen that work well. This is gonna have things in it. I'm gonna make sure I can anonymize it before I pull up the products. All right, cool. Let's talk about bidding strategies. All right, so this is for sponsored product ads, which, by the way, if anyone has any questions on bidding strategies for sponsored display ads, I'm more than happy to talk about display as well. I'm assuming you meant sponsored product ads because you said up or down. So dynamic up and down bidding, this means that Amazon can up to double your bids if they determine that a specific shopper is more likely to convert. So we'll raise your bids in real time when your ad may be more likely to convert a sale, and lower your bids when they're less likely to convert a sale. Dynamic down only lowers bids in real time. If Amazon determines that you are not likely to make a sale, they won't increase it. And fixed bids, this one is kind of commonly misunderstood. They'll use your exact bid and any manual adjustments you set, and they won't change your bids based on the likelihood of the sale. Okay, let's go through them. My least favorite is dynamic up and down. Now, there is a very specific use case in which our team has been testing where dynamic up and down bids do work, but I will preface this by saying it is not for low ACoS. Okay, the one case in which the team tested, this is why I'm like so excited about our team testing everything, because my team is smarter than me on Amazon advertising, by the way. Like, all of these things I'm telling you, I'm literally learning from them. But there was a couple accounts where it was supplement accounts or skincare where bids are crazy high. I'm talking upwards of $5. And we had increased the bids, and we were really struggling to gain impressions. And I say we, my team was. And what they found was, like, they were like, we already have the bids at like $6. Like, do we really want to go higher? But yet, to try and get things to move, we needed to push the bids. And so what they tested is using dynamic up and down bidding to see if that would have, like, if Amazon would give us traction for that. And it worked. Now, were the cost per clicks crazy high? Yes. Were they as high as they would have been if they had continued to like increase bids, and they probably would have had to put them at $10? No. And so in that case, because it was like, Amazon, please, we've increased and we just, please just serve us impressions, that strategy really worked. Other than that, like, very specific use case, and again, you still have to do optimizations, ACoS is not going to be low in that case, then I would not use dynamic up and down bidding. Now, our typical favorite is going to be dynamic bids down only. What this means is that, again, you will typically see lower CPCs in dynamic bids down only. The other thing I do want to say about up and down bidding, do not ever use dynamic up and down bidding when you are using placement percentages, or if you are testing AMC audiences and you have access to that and you're doing testing to like go after like audiences and percentages of that, that's going to like exponentially increase your CPCs. It's not going to be good. So be very careful with this one. Dynamic down only if you want like a default. And then fixed bids, there is a misconception on fixed bids that like, oh, if I put in $1 bid, my CPC is going to be $1. That's not correct. What it means is that every single time that your ad is eligible for the ad auction, you are always going to enter into that auction with $1 bid. Now, your CPC is still going to only be 1 cent higher than the next highest bidder for that ad spot. So you could still spend 76 cents, 80 cents, maybe in 57 cents, and then it would be that your average CPC would be the averages of all of those clicks. But you're still always going to be like aggressive. So where fixed bidding strategy is really helpful is when your goal is to gain impressions. So if we are ever launching a campaign or if it's like a ranking campaign, we will often use fixed bids. Or if we are saying like, man, I'm really, really struggling to gain impressions on this specific campaign and I need to gain impressions, then I would use a fixed bidding strategy, because again, my goal is impressions and fixed bids will give you more impressions. So hopefully that was helpful and explained bidding strategies. If you want to talk our sponsored display bidding strategies, we can talk sponsored display bidding strategies because there's 3 of them and one of them is a VCPM, and I'm seeing questions on VCPM. So we'll pull that up in a second. Kim K said, so reporting compared to broad modified, the plus makes it difficult. Do you have a trick for looking up quickly? Yeah, let me pull up that. I'll literally show you my formula. Cool. All right. You want to see the spreadsheet formulas? All right. This is what we do. So for broad match, when we're looking at the number of targets, this is the crazy formula. But so we're looking for you basically look for, does the match type contain broad, and does the oh wait, that's the broad. Okay, so then we look for so we're counting, or you can do us like a sum if or a count ifs to say like, hey, does it reach all these criteria? And for broad match, which you would want to do, this is the spreadsheet formula for not, it's the 2 whatever open close brackets. You say doesn't contain a plus symbol. And then when we look at the modified broad match, we would say, does the match type column contain broad? And we're searching where it does contain a plus symbol. And by the way, if you're interested in like spreadsheet formulas where you see like this plus symbol, there's these 2 like star basically means like wild card. So it means, does it contain this at all? Meaning like there can be still words before or after it or spaces or whatever, but as long as it contains a plus symbol, we're assuming that it is a modified broad match. So that would be the spreadsheet formula I would use. And then you just, again, you have that criteria. And then what you'll do is you'll just use, here at this point, it's count ifs. So we're just saying like how many targets are there. But then you can also do like this one is, I think sales. So we're just sum ifs. So we just sum up the spend column to see if it is a modified broad match or not. So Kim, hopefully that was helpful. All right. Does VCPM campaigns help with keyword ranking? Not really. The reason I say not really is because VCPM currently is only available in sponsored brand campaigns and sponsored display campaigns. And in our tests, we found that sponsored brand and sponsored display ads don't have as much impact on your organic ranking as sponsored product ads. So it's not because I think that there's anything wrong with VCPM or that VCPM in itself like doesn't give you good rankings, but it's more because it's only available in those other ad types, and in our experience, those ad types don't have a lot of organic ranking. Which, by the way, do you want to know the correct way to evaluate a VCPM campaign and to optimize them? Let me see if I can pull this up, because this is going to be a huge one. Because if you don't know how to optimize, which I literally filmed a video on this, and then I just did a podcast with Ad Badger about this exact thing. I'm going to have to pull something else up. Unless anyone has, which again, context of this, Amazon ad questions, feel free to type them in the chat. We'll pull them up. We'll get them answered. But I do want to pull one of these up. I'm going to see. I'm going to have to edit this one again. All right. It's a bulk file, so it's going to take a hot minute. Cool. You want to evaluate your VCPM campaigns using a bulk file. And if you're using Ad Console to evaluate your VCPM campaigns, it's probably incorrect. So what you'll see here is we have our, actually, let me sort this ACOS column highest to lowest. Don't know if anyone can see this. Let's zoom in. All right, there we go. Cool. You want to download a bulk file, and you want to download it for your sponsor display ads. Go into your sponsor display ad campaigns and open it up. So here, this ACOS, where it says views and clicks, this is the ACOS in which you see in the ad console. And the ACOS that you see in the ad console is all of the people who saw your ad and then eventually purchased within a 14-day window. Well, what happens is they may have converted because they saw your ad, but maybe not, because a viewable impression to Amazon, which is what they're counting and they're charging you for, is only 50% of your ad being viewable for 1 second. 1 Mississippi. That's it. Like, that's how long 50% of your ad in the corner has to be viewed for it to be a viewable impression. And then if that specific customer goes on to purchase within a 14-day window, which maybe because they're just browsing the category, that's going to be counted as a viewable order. However, you can look at a bulk file, and this is the only place other than the API or AMC that you will be able to get this data, by the way. You can also see your click attributed sales, which means even though you're using a VCPM campaign and it's viewable orders, you can still see who actually clicked on your ad and then went on to purchase the product. So here you can see that the viewable impression orders are recording 84 orders and 98 units because some people purchase multiples. Where if we look at who actually clicked on our VCPM campaign, which again, this is from an audit, like we went in and fixed this, but the orders were only 3 units, which resulted, this is the ACOS that you're going to see in ad console. It's going to say 10%, 12%, 8%, and you're going, oh my gosh, I need to spend more on VCPM. These are fantastic. Well, actually, the real ACOS was 345%, not 10, 307%, not 12, 94%, not 8. And also, if you look at the bids that they had on these prior, they had like $15 bids on these things, which is like insane. So, definitely need to make sure that you are auditing your VCPM campaigns using click attributed sales, which again, bulk file. If you want to know how to download a bulk file, let me see if I can get it in the account. Let's go in here. And I want to make sure, sorry, I gotta blur stuff for a second. All right, let's go to campaign, bulk operations. All right, let's do this. Cool. All right, let's pull this up. Okay, so if you want to download a bulk file, you go into your ad console, you go to sponsored ads, bulk operations. You go in here. I would select a 14 or a 30-day date range because you want to make sure you can evaluate these. And if you want to look at, again, that view that I was just sharing with you, you're going to check campaign items with 0 impressions. You can uncheck everything else. If you want to use bulk file to look at the rest of your account, you can, but you just need the sponsor display ads. And then you just click create spreadsheet for download. Once this is downloaded, you'll see the blue icon. You can download it, open it up, go through and do your evaluation. Super important because I can't tell you how many people are running VCPM campaigns thinking they have an amazing ACOS when in fact they don't, unfortunately. Cool. All right, but that was a fantastic question. Hopefully that was helpful. If anyone else has any additional questions, feel free to type them into the chat. If I don't see any questions come through, I did see other questions, but people are asking about working with our team and also working about and asking if they can have a job, which again, we're growing rapidly, but we just hired 3. new team members, I believe. So we're going to wait for them to get settled before evaluating if we need any more. Other than that, I feel like we're about 10 minutes out, so I'll wait a couple more minutes if anyone else has any Amazon advertising questions, which again, I do these every single week. There's always a ton of questions. So I recommend, if this has been valuable, to go and check out our lives. You can go to our YouTube channel, check out any of our past lives. There's a lot of these. I've been doing this every single Thursday for a very long time. Also, we put out a lot of the helpful information, so it's actually based off of the questions that I get every single week. So if you go to our website now, and why is that not loading? It should be. We should have a way to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please hold. But yeah, we also have a newsletter. There we go. It's working now. You can find that in the footer of our website, which I'll put that one into the chat as well. But feel free to go and join our newsletter because we put out more valuable content on our newsletter. You also get alerts for these lives as well. About 30 minutes before we go live. We have a ton of social content as well. Like we put out daily content across all channels as well. FYI. Ton of stuff happening on. So our goal is to make everybody as much as possible an expert in Amazon advertising, share the knowledge, share the wealth, so you guys can scale up your accounts and not have to waste a ton of ad dollars on things like VCPM that are not working as well. So with that, all right, we're looking, so saying thanks, good session, every single week, valuable. Absolutely. This would not be possible if you guys were not here. So I appreciate everybody showing up, asking ad questions. Kim says, thanks so much. You are more than welcome. I'm glad it was helpful. So with that, I'm going to bid you all a good day. I really appreciate it. Oh, no, we got another one. Okay. Another question coming in the chat. Squeaking it. What is the strategy for premium listing, seller, higher tier pricing? If I aim for market advancing strategy, highly leveraged click attribution, sponsored product campaigns, a cost also reaches 40%. Fantastic. So I'm going to give you two things that I'm going to share with you. One of them, I just recorded a video. Looks like you're watching on YouTube. Fantastic. So you should be able to go and find it. My great friend Bernard. So this video right here, secret ad strategy for boosting sales on high price products. He shared a fantastic strategy on targeting rest of search for higher priced items. So I would definitely recommend going and checking that out. He shares like tactics, adjustments, how he goes through it, how he does bid optimization. I would definitely check that out. And then the other thing that you need to be looking at in terms of higher priced items, your sort of struggle is going to be because the price point is higher. Let's see. So if you had, say, like $100 price point, you typically have like a really low conversion rate. Like you might be looking at a 2% conversion rate, which even let's see, you had a 40% ACoS, you said. So let's see. I'm assuming, so if you had a 40% ACoS, you probably have maybe like an 80 cent click. All right, so here's what you need to do. Two things. One, where can I get better CPCs? Is there long tail keywords? Is there long tail variations? Is there specific shopper searches that have better price points on them? Which, by the way, let's see if I could show this to you. All right, let's see. Does this work? Yes. Okay, cool. Let me blur my screen really quick, and then let's go over to, all right, search query performance. You can actually use search query performance if you go over here and you look at, do they have it? Okay, you're going to have to click customize columns. You can actually see the median price and the brand median price, let me get rid of that, save, for each individual search query. So what I would actually recommend is going through and seeing, is there a specific search? So here you can, the classic example, right? So you have this average price point of purchases on this item is $16. So people are probably purchasing cheaper items. But here you can see that this search query, there's $31 average purchase price median. And here you can see a $36 and a $42. So these are clues as to which searches shoppers are using to purchase higher price items. Now, you definitely want to see like the volumes, because sometimes if it's a higher price item, that doesn't always mean that there's volumes there. So I would look at that. The other place that you can go to see, and I don't want to pull that up. Maybe I could pull it down. But the other place that you can go to look at that is going to be the Product Opportunity Explorer. That one also tells you like the median price of each search term. So that would be the one thing that I would look at. So where do that should get you better conversion rates, because if a shopper is like more likely to purchase, then you should get better conversion rates. So that will be helpful. The second thing is, again, just which key terms do I have better conversion rates on? So you want to look at that. And then again, where can I get solid CPCs? And the other thing that I would say about higher price items is that you will see oftentimes like big fluctuations in performance because sales are often very sporadic. And so our recommendation, we typically optimize off of a 14-day window on our like just general items. We found that to be a good cadence, but for our higher price, lower conversion items, we'll often optimize off of a 30-day window of data because we want to kind of smooth out those performance swings. So between all of those tactics, you should be able to come up with a pretty solid strategy that will help you. Question with VCPM, can I reach 10%? Is Amazon lying to us? So yeah, I mean, I would just go and look. Amazon's, they're not lying. It's not lying. They're just calculating it differently. So I would recommend, I would definitely go download a bulk file, look at this, the ACoS of views and clicks versus your actual, like this is the click attribute ACoS. Just look at them. It's not a wrong way to calculate it. It's just a different way to calculate it. The problem is when you think that this view and clicks attribution is the same as like a sponsored product ad, because it's not. It's calculated differently. So it's not like Amazon's lying to you. They're just a VCPM campaign, by the way, is very common in advertising. It's very new to Amazon advertising. And so that's why everybody can't understand it. But it's very common in things like meta ads or other ad types. Like you typically pay per impression versus like pay per click. So as long as you know how to optimize it correctly and read the data correctly, you should be perfectly good. If you're not comfortable doing that, then like just stay away from them. Run a regular sponsored display ad. But fantastic questions. Awesome. So with that, I appreciate it, everyone. This has been a fantastic session. I highly recommend. So if you are struggling with your Amazon ads, if you need a second pair of eyes, if you want some help, if you want to know how to expand, if you want someone to evaluate your VCPM campaigns for you, highly recommend you check out Junglr. junglr.com. There is a way where you can schedule an ad audit. I'll go through it myself. We'll hop on a call. We'll talk about goals, and then we'll build you a custom ad evaluation. And then our goal with that is for you to be like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Of course, we would love for you to work with us. But even if not, we don't hard sell anyone. So we just hope to add value. So appreciate it. And with that, I will see you guys all same time, same place next week. And we have a very special guest, so definitely looking forward to it. And that wraps up this episode of the Ask Junglr Amazon Advertising Podcast. I hope you found these insights and strategies helpful in your Amazon PPC journey. Remember, if you have a burning Amazon ad question that you'd like answers to, head over to junglr.com/live to join our next live Q&A session. Until next time, keep optimizing those ads and stay hungry.